to conferences all the time is the main driver for progress in your skill set and also your relationship, and basically any professional can become a better professional by attending conferences.
It's not the standard, okay? It's a movie theater, but the visual is great and the sound is great, and I've seen a lot of room and space, and I think it's organized well.
Seeing all the people here today and they're excited about stuff, you can see the energy and the desire to learn and do new things.
And I was positively surprised about the depth, the technical depth of the sessions, and how that makes the tester part of the team.
I think developers do benefit from coming to QA conferences, just the same as testers can benefit from going to dev conferences. You've got to have a broad understanding of what's going on.
It's really inclusive. I would say it's super diverse. People are really, really open and friendly, and it's really organized.
Conferences are well worthwhile just for the ideas that they spark in people. When people come back to the office, they're full of ideas and they're all energized up.
Hello everyone, my name is Milovan Pocek and I'm coming from Novi Sad, Serbia. I work as a software tester in software development company called Execom. For past few years, I work on a cloud-based project, so I will try to share my insights and experience working on those projects. So in my speech, I will show you how you can monitor and test things in the cloud. Also, I will make comparison between on-premises testing and testing of cloud-based solutions. In the end, I will show you how you can automate your cloud testing. Hope you're gonna enjoy my presentation on TestCon.
Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation, Introduction to Functional Testing of Microsoft Azure. My name is Milovan Pocek, and let's get cloud. First of all, let me guide you through content that I will describing in this talk. Of course, introduction. I will spare some words on what is cloud, talk a little bit about Azure Console and Azure Services. I will describe you our business problem that we have and that we try to resolve using Microsoft Azure. I will show you one test scenario, and that test scenario is main point of my presentation, where I will guide you through how I monitor and test things in the Microsoft Azure cloud. A little bit about test automation. In the end, pros and cons of this kind of testing, and conclusion in the end, of course. So, first of all, I'm coming from Serbia, from a company called Execom, and recently we become a member of HTech Group. Execom itself contains around 200 employees, but HTech Group has over, I think, around 600 people. But I work in Execom for past 5 years, and for past few years I work on cloud-based projects. Here on top left corner, this is my previous crew. They are working now on Microsoft Azure, and on top right corner there is a part of my current team. We previously worked on AWS technology. Now we switched to Microsoft Azure. So I worked in Execom, as I said, for 5 years, and for past few years I'm working mostly on testing cloud technology. I'm huge cloud admirer. I'm that person in the plane that sits next to a window and takes a million photos of the cloud. Some of these are mine, actually. And that's it about cloud, but that's not the technology that I'm going to talk about today, of course. This is some joke how IT dad will explain cloud to his son or a girl. So he would say, like, what are the clouds made of? He would say probably something like this: Linux servers mostly, but it's much more than that. It is also Windows servers, Macintosh servers, and so much more behind it. How it looks like in real life. So this is the picture of actual footage of Microsoft Azure facility. It is a big data center with a lot of equipment, a lot of people in it. And there is like a lot of these data centers around the world. So it's not one building, it's in different geographical zones, there is different data centers. It is very important when we talk about disaster recovery approach with the cloud. I will talk a little bit about it later. Why they are call it cloud technology? One of assumption is that in previous time, people when talk about internet on the meetings, they representing like a cloud on the board. So that's one of the theory why it's called cloud, but it's not really up there, it's down on the earth, and it looks like this. So some basic terminology when we talk about on-premises solution and cloud. On-premises solutions are ones that we have full control of our infrastructure, of our servers, databases, and so on. Even maybe we have it in our own company, or maybe we rent it. But nevertheless, when there is a peak in the usage, we need to support it. For example, telecommunication company and New Year's Eve. There is normal usage of your services, but on New Year's Eve, everyone wants to send a message or call their loved ones and say Happy New Year, and the demand for your services rapidly increase. So you need to have infrastructure to support that. And when your usage goes back to normal, you need to have all that big infrastructure to support those peaks. What is cloud approach? Cloud says, okay, we can provide you as much as infrastructure as you can imagine, and you only need to pay as much as you use it. So in that higher peak on New Year's Eve, you will just use more resources. After that, you go back to your normal usage and just pay for that normal usage. So you don't have to buy and maintain all that infrastructure. So in the first days of the cloud, a lot of people were very skeptical about it. So you need to have you need to give control over your resources, over your data to some other facilities, and you're skeptical about security and stuff like that. But cloud solutions now are so secured, because that is biggest business risk in the cloud technology, leaking of data, that they have really great security teams. And now is a trend that teams are switching from on-premises to the cloud just to improve their security. GDPR brings some additional cares about data in the cloud especially. Some industries like health industry forbidden to keep the data in the cloud. I'm mentioning that because there is a lot of aspects in the cloud, and this is one of it, and you as a member of a QA team can also think about stuff like that. Okay, so what are the greatest benefits of the cloud? There is a lot, but I make this list. It's cost saving. I already explained, you don't have to have a big infrastructure. You only need to pay as you use it. It's scalable. You can scale up as much as you want. You just need to pay for it, of course. It's secure. They have every day's attacks, and they need to have their security up to date. It's flexible. They provide a lot of services. You can customize it in any possible way that you want. Automation is one of the pillars of the cloud solutions. And disaster recovery, I already mentioned that they have facilities around the world. So if some power outage happened or some natural disaster happened, you can switch to another data center, and that's it. You don't have downtime at all. Is it true? Well, actually, if it's not implemented in correct way, then it is not cost saving. It is very expensive. Is it scalable? Of course, if you configure it, so you need to implement it correctly. If you don't know how to use security features, then it won't be secure at all. Flexibility, you need to know services that you're going to use. Automation, a lot of pre-work needs to be done in order to automation to work. And disaster recovery, once again, needs to be configured. So if it's not implemented, the benefits look something like this. But if it's implemented, as I said, correctly, all this can be beneficial to us. Who's gonna judge that? Of course, here we are, the members of a QA team. So if our importance was big in the on-premises world, now it's even bigger here. And our possibilities are much, much bigger in the cloud world. I will explain you in this presentation how. Okay, so this is a red alert map. Maybe some of you remember this game, but This is a metaphor how I'm going to guide you through this talk. So this is a starting point of red alert game. And you see all these black areas are invisible until you send Explorer, and then you can see it. So we're going to explore part of Microsoft Azure and then see much more. A good thing about cloud technology is that there is always going to be a black parts because they're rapidly developing, and there will always be something new to explore. So let me tell you about our business problem that we try to resolve using Microsoft Azure Cloud. Our company that we work for have chemical industry equipment, have some instruments all around the world. And we need to connect with those instruments using some web application and send some commands on it and receive the data from the instrument and some other features. So if you look at it that way, on example of one instrument, on the left side we have some chemical instrument. On the other side we have a web application, and we need to connect them using this Azure Cloud as a bridge between those two entities. Before I go to test scenario, let me just introduce you with Microsoft Azure Portal. It is a web portal that is my most precious tool in this cloud testing. Basically, you can log in from any browser, just use credentials for Azure Portal, and then you can access all the services in your system. Even better, if you look closely here, you have resource groups. What that means, that is actually environments. For each environment, development, testing, staging, production, demo, however you call it, you have a resource group. You click here, select a resource group, and voila, you have all the services from that resource group you can access using just this portal. I a few times mentioned Azure services. In the cloud, you use these services as a building blocks to your solution. You combine them in any way you want. There is over 100 Azure services. In this presentation, I will explain you the 5 that we use, and you will have some entrance knowledge about Azure Cloud. So let's go back to our scenario. What we want to monitor and test. We want to perform experiment on the instrument, and we want to see the results of that experiment here on the front end. So basically, we will do experiment here, send the results using cloud, and see it in the front end. So our developer said, okay, feature is done, it is deployed to test environment, can you please test it? I perform experiment here, and I don't see experiment results. Where I should start my investigation? Okay, so this is Octopus. Why I use this metaphor here? Because first service of Microsoft Azure services that we're gonna look into is called Azure IoT Hub. It is a service that enables us to register millions of devices on the cloud, and we can access them and so much more. So first thing that I'm going to go, I will log into my Azure portal. I will go to Azure IoT Hub service and check if our instrument there is present. And if it's present, I will check if it's online. And I said, okay, I don't see our instrument in the list of instruments on IoT Hub. And our developer said, okay, sorry, I forgot to register it. I forgot to install some certificates to connect it to the internet and so much more. After that is fixed, once again, I do experiment. I don't see results in the portal. What is my next place where I'm going to search for it? It's called Azure Service Bus. Azure Service Bus is a service that connects decoupled services. It is publisher, subscriber, or listener relationship where some service is publishing something on Service Bus and other waits to pick the message. Okay, so instrument is registered on IoT Hub. Message is sent to Azure Service Bus. If message is correct, it will go in active queue. If message is incorrect, it goes in dead letter queue. So you can access this dead letter queue using Azure Portal, and you can check why this message is not correct. You can send it to developer and says, okay, model is not good, or some fields that are required in our JSON file are not here, so can you fix it, please? And when it fixes, he says, okay, can you try again? I tried again, and once again, I don't see it here. Where is the next place where I'm going to search for a problem? Okay, here is a picture of Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla is one of the smartest people in history, and I proudly like to say that he's come from Serbia and he's my countryman. But once again, he's one of the greatest minds in the world. Why I connect him with the Azure Function? Because all our business logic, all the smartness of our solution is placed here in the Azure Functions. So if we want to check what's going on in Azure Function, we can use once again Azure Portal, and then we can query the Azure Function to see what's going on in the processing of that message which is retrieved from Azure Service Bus. This is one snipping from querying the Azure Function. It's a little bit tricky because it is custom language and it's a little bit challenging in the beginning, but after some time you will get used to this syntax and you can get what you want to see in the Azure Function. Okay, what is the problem with it? You cannot go immediately and check what's going on in Azure Function. You need to wait around 5 minutes in order to access those log files and see what's going on in Azure Function. Okay, now where is the next place where we want to check what's going on? It's called Cosmos DB. It's non-SQL database. It's very interesting because a lot of people coming from the SQL world and they need a little bit adjustment when they come to the Azure Cosmos DB or any other non-SQL database. Why is elephant here? It is one of the smartest animal and he can memorize a lot of things. Okay, so here we have Azure Cosmos DB. So is it really a database? Yeah, of course it is, but it is no SQL database. We have multiple companies that are using our system, and it's called multi-tenant system. So for each company or tenant, we have a separate container. It's not database in SQL sense of words. It's really a container of records. So we have a records of different record type. For example, in our case, this record type would be experiment results. You can see the syntax now. Select star from C, where C.type is equal to experiment results. Now we have a list of all records with type experiment results. What is the downside of Cosmos DB? If you want to delete some previous data about experiment results, you cannot multi-select stuff. You can only delete result by result. So if you have like 100 results, you need to delete one by one, and sometimes it can take a lot of time. What is the other option by default? You can delete the whole container for that tenant. Sometimes it's not acceptable to clean the database in that way because a lot of other records are there. So by default, that comes in that way. What you can do, you can create some store procedures, so that some custom queries that can help you delete the records by their type, but it doesn't come by default. Okay, so what is the last link that we need in this chain to be working? It's called API management. Here is a waiter. I will explain that later. So we have here a full chain of our Azure services. We have API management. What is API management actually? It is service that expose our Azure resources to the internet. Looked from the outside, it looks exactly like any other web service. Here is the explanation of waiter. So waiter in this picture is API management. We say, please give me experiment result with ID 123. How he hears it? He said, get me HTTP request, type get experiment result 123, and good waiter gives you back experiment results 123. Okay, so now we have full control of our flow of our chain. We have here instrument, which is registered on IoT Hub. Then it sends a message to Azure Service Bus. Then it starts trigger the Azure function It processes that message, saves the data in the Cosmos DB, and in API management, we have consumption from the front end. You can send a get request to the API management, and then we see the results on the front end. So let's go back to the comparison of these two approaches now when we have this knowledge of the cloud technologies. So in on-premise world, it's much more black box to me. So if you want to see something, to test something, you can shoot request from one side and then you see the results. But what's going on inside, it's sometimes really hard. You need to go remotely to some servers where your application is hosted. You need to know the logging system. And when we put the different environments in occasion, then it's get much more complicated. So on which environment, where is some database, and so on and so on. What's going on in the cloud? You have Azure Portal, you can select any environment, you can access any kind of service that you want. And basically, it's much more white box testing for me. You can do a much more investigation and report a bug and say, okay, in that service, that is the problem. And some maybe copy the logs, and then fixing of the bug can be much easier for developer, and your role in the whole team can increase rapidly using these cloud tools. Okay, test automation. How we plan to automate our testing in this approach? As I said, we have a web application, so it will be classical GUI automation. We will use Catalan Studio. It is tool based on recording and stuff like that. So from the front end, we are going to use Catalan Studio. API automation. I already said API management looked from the outside, behaves exactly as any other web service. We have a Postman, we can send requests to it, and we can automate some set of tests and use it later. Performance testing. Performance testing is a really interesting subject here when we talk about cloud, because cloud regarding performance is perfect, but you need to configure it. What that means, if you use some special services, you will pay more, but it can handle everything. In your package, you need to make sure that everything works as expected. For that purpose, I use JMeter tool. Yesterday, I heard a lot of interesting subjects regarding this tool, so you can Google it. About Postman and our test, how we can use it later. After development and deployment to some environment, one of the steps in the pipeline can be exactly our test that we created in Postman. So Azure DevOps is very good for any kind of integration in pipelines for continuous integration, continuous development. Okay, let's go back on some cons and pros of testing Microsoft Azure Cloud Solution. Some negative sides. When we query Azure Function, I already said it's complicated queries. It's a custom query language, but after some time you will get used to it. Once again, you need to think about that you can't see logs immediately. You need to wait a few moments, like 5 minutes top. Data preparation. Once again, by default, you can delete record by record or the whole container, multi-selection missing. So you need to create some custom query. We did that. We create some store procedures, and now we can use it. But by default, it doesn't come in the Microsoft Azure. What are good things? I already said practical ways of monitoring. It's much more white box testing than on-premises solution. And it's convenient for automation. Cloud technology, one of the biggest pillars of the cloud computing is automation. There is a lot of options to do that. It's very convenient for test automation. And most important thing that I said here is that we have a lot of benefits of cloud solution. But if it's not implemented correctly, your cloud solution would look something like this. And if it's implemented correctly, you will have something like this. And after this presentation, I hope that you will see the clouds in this way. Thank you so much for your attention.